What's up YouTube, it's the Dingo, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about Fire Mage AoE, which is super powerful in Wrath, and I think it's probably the best spec for leveling. It's really good for grinding endgame mobs, and it's also really good for PvP. It's a great spec all around, so let's dive into it. First of all, I know that all the mage specs are good at AoE. Fire's not alone in that. And in Wrath, a lot of other classes are good at AoE too. I mean, the Paladin can do it really well, the Prot Warrior can do it well, DKs obviously can do it really well, Druids can do it well, even Shaman can do it pretty well. But the Mage, the Fire Mage has a really unique way of getting the mobs together and then blowing them up really quickly in a really efficient way. So there's 4 talents that I want to talk about that make this super powerful. The first one, obviously, is Living Bomb. Living Bomb is absolutely insane. So it's a dot, basically, but what makes it special is at the end of the dot cycle, it does an AoE explosion around that mob that the dot ended on. So, and there's no cooldown. So you can put this on like 5-6 mobs in a row, they all come to you, right? And then when the dot runs out, they all explode on each other, and you get that AoE explosion on everything that you dotted. This is a super good way to pick up a bunch of things, bring them to you, frost nova them, and you can just let the Living Bomb do all the work if you want, but you can also obviously do a Flame Strike, do a Dragon's Breath, do a Blast Wave, whatever you want. And those are the next talents that I want to talk about, actually, are the 2 Fire AoE talents. Obviously, you have Blast Wave. Any classic WoW player is going to be familiar with Blast Wave. But in Wrath, of course, it does a knockback, which is super helpful. The other one, of course, is Dragon's Breath, which is super powerful as well. It's worth noting that when things are disoriented for that 5 seconds, the effect of Dragon's Breath, the Living Bomb damage will not take them out of that disorient. But not only that, the Living Bomb AoE explosion will also not take them out of that disorient. So you can gather all these mobs with Living Bomb, have all the bombs go off while they're Dragon's Breath disoriented, and you're still safe from any aggro or anything like that. Now, the 4th talent that I want to talk about that I think is kind of underestimated, I don't see a lot of people taking this talent, is Firestarter. Now, it's not going to be a big PvE talent. It's not going to be something you take on your Nax DPS spec for Fire. It's not going to be a huge talent for that kind of thing, but if you're leveling, if you're grinding, if you're doing PvP, I cannot speak highly enough of this talent. Not only do you get an instant Flame Strike, but it is no mana cost, which makes the AoE grinding strats with this spec incredibly mana efficient. I can take out an entire pack of mobs and only go down like maybe 25% of my mana pool. Really efficient. So what you do, and I'll show you a bunch of clips of this as I'm talking about it here, is you're going to Living Bomb a bunch of things, and that's going to do a couple things. First of all, it's going to start the dot, and it's going to start the countdown to the AoE explosions that come from those dots. The second thing it's going to do is it's going to bring those mobs to you because they're going to get aggroed, of course. Once they get to you, you have a lot of options, but what I think the most efficient thing to do, if you want to get the most bang for your buck as far as damage per mana, is you're going to Frost Nova them, and then you're going to throw a Flame Strike. You're going to cast a Flame Strike down on that Frost Nova full of mobs. Now, while this Flame Strike is going off, your Living Bombs are probably also going off. So there's going to be an enormous amount of damage going out here. As soon as that first Flame Strike that you cast goes off, you're going to Dragon's Breath. And once they're Dragon's Breath, they're disoriented for all that time. Once that disorient from the Dragon's Breath is finished, you're going to throw down your instant and free Flame Strike. So that's your second Flame Strike, right? Then you're going to be able to Blast Wave. And the Blast Wave is going to knock him back, so keeping you safe for a little bit longer, and then you get another free Flame Strike, okay? If they're still not dead, you can Cone of Cold and kite them for a little while and use Arcane Explosion to finish them off. But in my experience, the vast majority of the mobs are going to be dead by the second Flame Strike at the very latest. So I did this strat leveling from 66, I think, to 70. I did it all throughout Blade's Edge questing. I did it once I hit 70 to farm for Motes of Water up in Skadis. I also did it to farm for Motes of Life in Zangarmarsh. You can pretty much do it anywhere, and you can do it here. You can do it in the classic AoE spots like this, like over here in Shadowmoon Valley with all these Blood Elf Demon Hunter supplicants. There's not too many of them up right now, but I can just do a quick expose of what I'm talking about. So they're going to be pulled to me, obviously. And the other thing that's fun about this spec, this AoE strat, is that really it's not super rigid. I can kind of freeball it every time, and it's going to be fine. Because it's just so much damage. I mean, look at this. Absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, I'm low on health, but I could have played that a heck of a lot safer and chosen not to be low on health. You can also, every 3 minutes or so, you know, however long your ice block cooldown is, you can ice block. So if it's a really tough pull and you're finding that you're taking too much damage, you can always just, after you round them all up with Living Bomb, just sit in an ice block, and they're going to be blown up on the ice block. And then once you come out of the ice block, they're probably all either dead or almost dead, and you can finish them off with a quick blast wave or an arcane explosion or whatever it is, and then you're totally safe and there's no danger whatsoever. Now, obviously, that's only every 5 minutes or every 3 minutes or however long your ice block cooldown is, but it's still a good option to have if you're doing more dangerous pulls. Now, that's just leveling and grinding. That's not even touching on PvP. It's an incredible tool in Battlegrounds to have Living Bomb. Fire Mage is so much fun in PvP and Wrath, in my opinion. I think it's the most fun mage spec. It's probably not as good as Frost overall, just because of all the control and protection that Frost has. But I'll tell you, I have a lot more fun playing Fire than I do playing Frost. In Alterac Valley, for example, there's these big team fights every now and again. Having Living Bomb on your side in those team fights is game-changing. You can just stay in the back, Living Bomb people from the back lines, and their front lines are just going to be exploding constantly and all that fire damage. Not to mention, anytime a Living Bomb explosion goes off in a crowd of people and it crits on 2 people at the same time, you instantly get a hot streak proc. So what you can do is you can sit in the back and Living Bomb people in the front, and every time one of those explosions goes off and gets 2 crits, which is going to be frequently if you're in decent gear, you just get an instant pyroblast. And you can do an incredible amount of damage in these scenarios. And it's not just in AV. I mean, anytime there's team fights, which is every battleground, right? You're going to be able to put this strategy into use, and you're going to see some serious damage when you're successful. Now, it's worth mentioning probably at this point that as a Fire Mage, you want to gear specifically for crit. If you take a look at my character here, which is in the full Brutal set, I've been just honor grinding, during the pre-patch because it's so efficient. I've got 38% chance to crit. And that's essential. If you're not critting, the Fire Mage is not anywhere near as powerful. A lot of your mechanics come from crits. A lot of your mana efficiency talents come from crits. If you've got Master of Elements and Empowered Fire, you're getting mana back on crits and on Ignite ticks, which is super essential for PvE and very helpful in PvP too. You never want to be running out of mana, obviously. The other thing that I would mention if you're going to do a PvP Fire Mage is to try to stack a lot of stamina, because you don't have the luxury of Ice Barrier. You don't have Cold Snap to get your Ice Block back in the rotation if it's on cooldown, yada yada. Wow, this Death Knight is just tanking the elite with all the... Yeah, that seems balanced. Now, as it happens, as I was making this video, I was doing this pull for just to show what the pulls are like, and this DK comes in and ganks me. And as you can see here, I have to find him in the mess there, so I can be pumping pyroblasts at him as I get hot streaks. And I play this pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty rustled that I got ganked here, and I missed this blast wave. As you can see, I'm looking to put a flame strike down, but I didn't actually get the proc because I didn't hit anything with that blast wave. I'm going to mess up a first aid here in a second and waste it entirely. So I don't play this well at all, but you're going to see how it ends. Obviously, resilience is super important as well, because you want to take as little damage as possible. You are very much a glass cannon as a Fire Mage. You don't have a lot of protection, but boy, can you pump out damage. It is insane the amount of damage you can push out. especially if you get a couple lucky hot streak procs, and you can stay alive because people just die instead of being able to kill you. So I think that pretty much covers it. I hope you guys try out Fire Mage on your own time. Super fun. If you're leveling a mage right now, and now is a really good time to level a mage, I would strongly suggest at least giving Fire a try. I suspect it's by far the best leveling spec, just because of the raw damage output, the mana efficiency, and the AoE capabilities put together. You got a really strong spec for leveling right now. Also really strong at 70 for Battlegrounds if you're doing the PvP grind to get yourself some Brutal Glad gear for the leveling through Wrath. So check out the Fire Mage if you haven't yet. Check out the channel if you haven't yet. Leave me a comment if you're also enjoying the Fire Mage stuff. Hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see you guys around.